So this is a nice and new API called the Picture-in-Picture, and you've probably seen this floating around the web as you've been browsing, so we're going to learn how to implement it ourselves. Now, you can enter this Picture-in-Picture mode, and if you don't know what it is, you're about to learn, by clicking on the controls, and we have this Picture-in-Picture. Now, when you click it, you'll see that the video is now in the bottom, which means that we could, for instance, navigate to completely different pages, and we can watch the video as we, for instance, browse the internet. We can then, of course, come back and close off our Picture-in-Picture mode. So this is how we can do it with a nice button by using the HTML5 controls. And at the end, we're actually going to remove these controls and just be finished with our own custom UI. So in between our player progress and player sound, you guessed it, I have some icons lined up for us where we're going to create them and implement this ourselves. Now, underneath here, we're going to create a button with a type of button, and we're also going to give this a class. Now, inside, we're going to then create an image, which is going to hold an icon so we can add our own custom functionality. Now, Picture-in-Picture can be abbreviated as just PiP, so Picture-in-Picture, just to keep things nice and clean. So inside of our button, we want to grab our nice icon. So let's say image, src, we can interpolate, we can add some alt text. We can say picture in picture icon. And because it's a button, we're also going to add some nice ARIA label just to help in an accessibility sense. So picture in picture. So inside of our image source, we're going to call this the picture in picture icon, which we can jump up the top and go and import it. So let's say picture in picture icon. Now this icon I've decided to call the pop-up icon. Now this I've decided to call the pop-up. So go ahead and import that. We can then hit save and we can then see our new icon, which gives us a nice picture in picture representation. Now one thing we also need to do is jump into our style sheet. And because we've got a new button, we're going to add the player underscore picture in picture, so we can save this out and we get a much nicer UI. So now we've done that, we need to bind some click events to our button, and then we're going to launch this picture in picture mode. So we have this player underscore picture in picture, we can jump down, we can call this the PiP, and we can rename our selector to player underscore PiP. Now the first thing that we want to do is check that we have the capability to enable picture in picture mode. So for this, we can say picture in picture enabled, and we can say in document. So this would check the prototype chain to see if picture in picture enabled exists in our document, which if we paste it into our Chrome DevTools, you can see that we get the value back of true. So our browser, as we can obviously see, supports this picture in picture mode. So it's good to, of course, safety check it before we get started and start using it. Which means that if we do have it enabled, we want to initialize the picture in picture. So we're going to create a container function which we can then invoke if we do in fact support this. So let's grab our function definition and just simply call it if we are supporting it. If we're not supporting it, we could of course go and hide that particular icon. So inside of our initialization function, we're only going to kick off an event listener if our picture in picture is supported. So let's bind a click event, and inside of here, we're just going to simply request the picture in picture mode if we do not have a particular element. Now, first, let's say console log, and then we're going to look at document picture in picture and then element. So this is going to give us a value of null. So that's a good sign. Null means that it hasn't actually been set. If we were to enter picture in picture mode and then click, you can see that now we have a video, which is highlighted above, is now our picture in picture element. So at this point, the browser is assuming that we've now been assigned an element which has entered the picture in picture mode. And obviously when I close it, it then becomes null again. So what we essentially want to do is check whether we've entered this picture in picture mode, because we will then have an element that's been assigned to it. So what we can say is if we are not in that particular mode, then we want to request it. So talking to our existing media object, we can request picture in picture. So let's save this out. We can go back to our icon, we can click it, and you can see that now we have entered picture in picture mode. This of course will work if we start playing and then click our custom icon. We can't, however, click this and then go back. We have to manually click here. So we could, in fact, add an else statement. So to close our picture in picture mode, we can simply say document, and we want to exit picture in picture. So this allows us to programmatically select picture in picture mode, and we can toggle this and allow the user to interact with our custom controls themselves. Now, before we close this off, and that was quite a nice and easy API, I want to just show you some events that come with this. So back to our media object, we can have enter picture in picture. So this is an event that actually fires anytime that we enter this picture in picture mode. And it depends what you want to do. We could, in fact, hide the initial video. We could do absolutely anything that we want. So let's just here add a console log. We can say entered picture in picture. Similarly, we can also have an event when we leave picture in picture mode. So instead of enter, let's change this over to leave, and we can say that we've left picture in picture. Let's save this out. We can start playing. Check on the console as we enter and exit. We have entered picture in picture, and finally that we've left. You may be asking, why do we have this API on the web platform? I'm sure you've been on social media, for example, and you've started playing a video and you've scrolled down and the video has continued to play. So the same thing occurs here when we want to navigate away. Let's say that we start watching a video and then navigate to a different web page. We can still watch what we want to whilst navigating around. So this is a great API. And of course, it shouldn't be abused. We should be using it as a nice addition to something the user has requested. And it can be quite a negative aspect when we are on a particular website and we've not really requested this picture in picture. Even though this is called a request of the picture mode, we haven't actually asked permission. So I wouldn't recommend just always using this. Perhaps you can add an icon like this where you can ask the user and demonstrate that they can manually then go and enter that picture in picture mode. So that's it for this lesson. This is a really nice new API, this picture in picture mode. I'm sure you will agree it's quite nice. We've also looked at the events that come with it when we want to enter, and we can easily check whether an element has been assigned. And if it hasn't been assigned, we want to simply request the mode. Otherwise, we can use the document, not the media object itself, to then use the document to exit out of that mode.